My very first company was at 14 years old, a company called Trixie's Tutor Time, and it came as a result of necessity. I wish I could tell you it was like this, no, it was necessity. It was, I made the cheer squad and I made the soccer team both at the same time, and each sport was like $1,000, right? So within 30 days, I was making more cash under the table than both my parents combined.
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow Podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host, and I'm so glad to have you back listening to the show or watching if that's the case. We have a great guest today, all the way from the Sunshine Coast of California, Trixy Castro. So first off, Trixy, thank you for doing this. We really appreciate having you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You got it. Hey, so guys, the subject today is all about your mindset. And yeah, I know you've heard me say this before, but it's so true. I can teach you everything there is I know about real estate and businesses and stocks and bonds and so forth. But it won't matter if you don't have the right headspace, what we call the mindset, and be able to act and react in a way that's positive, coming from love and contribution, but most importantly, being coming from a success mindset, right? So, I mean, there's more to it than that, and I'm going to let Trixie talk about that because that's why she's on the show. So Trixie, before we get into it, I want to hear your story. Could you start at the beginning? Like, what was the inspiration for you getting into this space? And maybe there was a trigger moment you wouldn't mind sharing with people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say it's quite the entrepreneurial American dream story, because it starts from my parents coming from Cuba and really wanting to create a family environment in their home and in anything that they did here in the US. Very grateful to be here, but education wasn't the main factor, right? It was, how are you going to put food on the table? How are you going to progress and move forward? And so growing up and understanding that, we had to contribute to society and be a part of something greater than ourselves was really important to me. And as such, I had this drive to go out and want to build something. And funny, my very first company was at 14 years old, a company called Trixie's Tutor Time, and it came as a result of necessity. I wish I could tell you it was like this, no, it was necessity. It was, I made the cheer squad and I made the soccer team both at the same time, and each sport was like $1,000, right? So wanted to go
Yeah.
out there and figure out how to, make that money, and didn't have a worker's permit, didn't have, all the things that one needs. So put together Trixie's Tutor Time on old school computer paper with the bubbles on the side and magic
Yeah.
markers, and went to the elementary school across the street where my two younger sisters attended, and went to the principal and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. And I don't remember, what he said, but he definitely introduced me to the teachers. And that was such a pay it forward moment, right? Because that gave me the ability to actually understand that if I went out there and I made my sweet spot the second and third graders, I could hire the fifth and sixth graders and I could expand. And to make a long story short, within 30 days, I was making more cash under the table than both my parents combined. So I realized, whoa,
Wow.
whoa, whoa, yeah, there's something to this, right? Where there's a will, there's a way. And I hung on to that because I thought,
Mhm.
this is great. I could really teach people and educate. And if I'm organized, I can expand schools, right? And I wanted to go and really learn about money. So I walked into a Wells Fargo bank and I said, hey, I'm 17 years old, fast forward a couple of years, I'd like to work for you. And, can you hire me? I'll do whatever. And they hired me as a teller. And I was probably the world's worst teller on the planet because I would talk to all the clients, right? But
Yeah.
I would say that what I learned was to really understand your client, to really understand who your customer is. And in
Mhm.
doing such, right, I really started to see that the three largest depositors were the real estate groups, the tech groups, and the gamblers. So I thought,
Oh,
not
wow.
trying to go to jail for gambling and counting cards, right? Tech was
Yeah.
still fairly new, so real estate it was. And during this time, time went on, and I was now living in a dorm room in college and doing that. And I loved working at the bank. I loved understanding what these customers were doing and how they were doing it. And in those days, they were coming in and they were getting wads of cashier's checks, right, in different denominations, and going to the courthouse steps and hiring people like myself at 18, 19, 20 years old to go out and make these acquisitions of the distressed real estate, the
Mhm.
REO. And I kept thinking like, wow, this is such an incredible niche.
Mhm.
Imagine if they're buying, 50 homes a month, they could be doubling that number if they used leverage. And
Yeah.
so anyway, that being said, I really set out to understand this space and really try and come up with a concept where I could be a lender, right? And really help and scale these groups' businesses and improve their processes, improve mine, and really get an idea of how we could build something really neat, right? And so that was the
Mhm.
concept, and that is how Genesis Capital was born. I started it with a phone and a desk, and an idea and stars in my eyes, and realized very quickly that I had to do all of it, wanted to do all of it, I should say, from the phones to, originating, processing, underwriting, the whole thing, right? And realized that being so young, there were many challenges, right? One of which was
Yeah.
raising money. I mean, when I didn't have access to high net worth individuals and family offices and, right? So this seemed like a task that was just unheard of for myself. And I said, you know what, let me go out there and do it. Let me try it, fractionalized lending, right? So today we call that crowdfunding, right? But really understood the deal. And I remember thinking, if I can apply what I do in sports to this, right, and be the absolute best I can be and learn it better than anybody else, then I have a shot, right? And so, anyway, to make a long story short, that was how the adventure began. And continue to build it up and to really understand the space and raise my first 5 million, 10 million, 30 million. I thought I was going to die. I'm like, oh my goodness, there's got to be a better way to do this, right? To cast a wider net and to be able to somewhat institutionalize the space. And it was a challenge because I would, as the time went on, I would go to different events and people would say, well, what do you do for a living? And as I started to explain it, I felt like, my goodness, I need like a whiteboard, right? To
Yeah.
make sure their eyes don't glaze over, because this was pre, flip that house in reality TV and all of that. So anyway, it
Yeah.
was a really great journey to, in many ways, be that educator, right? Learning
Mhm.
alongside, going in and opening up all of these territories and really grassroots understanding how the whole thing worked, who was doing what, and raising the money alongside of it. But I at one point realized, I'm missing the boat here. If I can have the REO, the short sale, the distressed asset, I can be that gold, right? So I was struggling to raise the amounts of money that I had in origination. So let me find another value add that I could provide my clients. And so did that and set out to put together an online auction company. And so my clients on that side of the house were, the big banks, right? Fannie, Freddie, HUD, FDIC, all the large groups. And so it was going through and helping understand what their portfolios were, right? What the value was,
Mhm.
being able to then translate that and provide the information to the investor buyers as well as the consumer of, okay, this is what we have, right? Here's where we are, and create a bidding platform, right? And so that was a lot of fun. So now here I am, two companies, right? And I get Oak Tree Capital out of downtown to give me that first shot on the lending side in Genesis Capital. And they were the first in the space, right? The institutional group. And I kept thinking, like, God, I'm so lucky. I'm so excited, because how I viewed it was, now I can learn from them, right? Now I can learn
Mhm.
from the best. And so it was such an amazing opportunity. Not only did the business scale and do great things, but definitely it was like a crash course for me in so many positive ways. And so really was scaling both companies, and realized very early on that with the auction company, I had to make an acquisition or a merger or something to get there faster, right? Because the
Okay.
clock was ticking. So did that with the company Hudson Marshall, which was an amazing experience. And now, was kind of like on roller skates, if you will, had both companies on an entire floor. And, something that started with a phone and a desk eventually ended selling the auction company to Fidelity and the lending company to Goldman Sachs, both within
Nice.
9 months of each other. So that's a whole nother podcast,
Wow.
that whole process. But it was such an amazing experience, right? Because here you are
Yeah.
and you're like, this is my baby, and putting
Mhm.
it and setting it off. And then now you're giving your baby like to someone else, right? And you're like, oh my
Yeah.
God. Right. So there was so much that came to it and what life looks like after, right? Because, you're taking someone who's been working since she was 14 years old. That wasn't going to stop. For me, the
Right.
motivation was so much more than a monetization event. Although that was great, it was,
Mhm.
how can I build something great? How can I make an impact? How can I take a step back and then really walk
Mhm.
away from this feeling like I was able to be a real leader, right? And to change lives and create jobs and create housing opportunities and so, realize very quickly there's opportunity everywhere if you're looking, right? And took a lot of
Right.
these business principles and went and, started really looking at other platforms, other businesses, both in the US and overseas, waited out my non-competes, absolutely honored my word on that, but,
Yeah.
always itching to come back, and a glutton for punishment to build and to have that rush of, the beginning infancy stages. So that's how it all began, right? And so
Yeah.
much who I am has been a part of these companies, right? So in a way,
Mhm.
when I sold the companies, there was a little bit of this like, okay, now what do I do? Right? Like, wasn't going
Right.
to retire. It wasn't going to, like, are you kidding? This was like something that was so important to me. So it was really neat to then align myself with other entrepreneurs and help them with their businesses, whether that was funding needs, business scaling, all of the above. And it's been a really great experience, as well as building my own. So in a
Yeah.
nutshell, just a serial entrepreneur is a long way to answer a short question.
Yeah. No, well, that's such an awesome story. And, you know, it really is just the American dream come true. I mean, your family came from another country, and I mean, all of our families said no. The only people who are really truly native of America are American Indians, and
Right.
they even came from somewhere else, But so the reality is it's still alive and well. And I'm European. I'm, Irish, German, Scottish, and Welsh, but born in Germany. Came here to the States as a really young child and lived, big city, out in the wilderness. I mean, you name it. We've been all around in Canada too. I lived in Canada for a while. But one thing I can tell you for sure is you just hit on something really, really important. If the opportunity is there, if you're looking for it, and it's there's a lot of famous quotes of this. Some of they all come from old scriptures, and one of them is, ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, and knock and the door shall be open. But if you're not knocking, you're not seeking, you're not asking, you don't know what's out there. It doesn't
Right.
hurt. What's the worst that could happen? Somebody says no,
Yeah.
and that's one less no you've got to live through now. You're closer to a yes.
Yeah.
But a couple things here is really interesting. So I've have sold some business. I built several businesses and sold all but the one I've got now. And the first one I sold, I didn't really want to sell it. It was there, it was just a big, divorce, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, I could take the long, hard road, or I could take the easy road and just say, let's just liquidate and we'll move on. That's what we did. But what I found out, Trixie, is it actually bought me my freedom. I'm like, whoa. I had all of a sudden the phone's not ringing. I don't have a pile of mail every single day to go through. I don't have any bills to pay. I had no debt. I was about as free as you could possibly be. And I remember thinking to myself, this feels really good. So I like being free. But what I was able to do is build another business that allowed me to maintain our freedom, still have the freedom to travel, and I don't need to take on any debt anymore. It's that feeling's still there. But back to you. So you experiencing that, did it feel like all of a sudden you've got this brand new blank canvas that the universe gives you, and God gives you the cans of paint, the paintbrushes, and the camps, and it's up to you to paint that picture, and that's what you did. So the mindset. Would you say that helped your mindset, or did it actually inspire you further? To tell us a little bit about what did that do to your mindset?
Well, it changed a lot of things, but
Mhm.
one of the things is it reinforced what I already knew. You know how sometimes you think of
Mhm.
something and you need someone else to say it or some experience to just
Yes.
like drive it home. It was a little bit of that. It reinforced what I already knew. And I decided, I'm so grateful, right, to have had these opportunities and to have had the experiences of having to be resilient and going through the tough times and having to like dig into that grit, right, and not have it be an easy path, because now I know what to expect, right? And now I can go do it again and I don't have to have as many battle wounds. And if I can help the next person, right, like say young Trixie, be able to have the tools and resources and inspiration and all of the things, that would be a huge win, right? So it really reinforced it. But I will tell you that mindset is everything. And I know it sounds so just everybody talks about it, but I am living proof, right, that you can do it. And so when I look at my blank canvas, because that's an absolute perfect description, I actually do that probably every quarter. And it's not like a structured thing. It's usually when I'm alone on a plane and have a minute, and there's
Yeah.
something about writing it down for me. It's this whole like
Yeah.
writing it down. I don't forget, it's real, it's on paper. And then, yes, I can type it and make it pretty and the graphs and the charts and all of that. But something about almost like sketching it out, I've realized through the years, it's almost like my form of art, right? So it's taking a problem and figuring out, okay, how do I monetize this? Because if I have this issue and my team has this issue, I'm going to make the assumption that others do too. So now there's a cause, right? Now I got to get out there and help fix it, right? And so I learned a
Yeah.
lot about myself through that, right? Like I
Uh-huh.
don't have to be the fixer. I can be innovative too. So there's all of this kind of like learnings of yourself that I didn't realize until I, was a little bit older, that you've got to really treat it like the business, right? So we are the business. So investing in
Yeah.
ourselves is critical. And I never realized that. As basic as that sounds, I always was like, go, 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 do, put yourself
Mhm.
last and, get the scraps. And when I realized, hey, wait a second, I can be much more effective and efficient if I'm the business, right? And I'm investing in myself, I can just do so much more. It was a complete game changer for me. It made the
Yeah.
mindset transition so much easier.
Did you know that you can participate in class every Monday? We call it Monday Night Live, 7 p.m. Eastern, with me and dozens of other investor agents from around the country, in fact, the world. Every Monday, totally free. No selling, no recruiting, just straight up education on anything and everything in real estate. And we have a lot of good guests coming on once or twice a month, bringing in expertise on subjects like how to buy a house with crypto. Okay. How about them apples? What about AI? How's AI affecting our business? How about the metaverse, blockchain processing? We're already using it in title work. So come on to Monday Night Live. Be ready to take notes and ask questions because it's live and engaging, and you get to participate by asking questions and meeting others. So we'll see you there. Go to realestatewithgarywilson.com, click on the resource tab, drop down, and you'll see Monday Night Live. And in there, you can see one of the most recent classes. But more importantly, you can register for class as many as you want going up to like the end of the year, I believe. So in any case, do that. We'll see you on Monday Night Live. Look forward to meeting you in person. Take care. Yeah. Well, we have so much in common. I do the same thing. I write everything down because I know when I physically write it, I'm using
Mhm.
my hand, I'm using my eye, I'm using my mind. I'm speaking the words of my mind as I'm writing. So when I teach people, I mean that's all I do is I just teach people anymore, teaching, training, and coaching all over the country. I have my own team, and I'm constantly reminding them, guys, look, I love my cell phone. I don't know if I love it, but I rely on it. I rely on my computer. But I never get away from writing things down because it makes it real. It
Mhm.
makes it real. So, hey, Trixie, you mentioned early on about helping other people doing the same thing because you've done it. You're living proof that it works. You know how it works. You're helping other people. When it comes to how do I want to phrase this? When it comes to well, let me ask you this. Can you give us a success story of someone you've helped, someone you worked with, highlighting how the mindset transformation played a role in that entrepreneur's success? Just a good old fashioned, take us down memory lane if you don't mind sharing.
Oh,
You might have to you might have to give a fake name or something. I don't know how you want to do that, but
yeah.
if you could do that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. So I can tell you that it is probably one of my greatest joys, right? To be able to help cultivate another entrepreneur and help them see that perhaps this wasn't just an idea that they had or a burning desire. It was something they could really do. So the running joke is I can't keep an assistant to save my life, right? Because I promote them or I help them realize that, they can go out and do it. But I mean, that's so genuinely my passion to be able
Mhm.
to align myself, because let me help them get to their passion and do their passion. So I always have, I mean, I can't even tell you how many entrepreneurs that I've been able to be a part of. At least I can tell you right now today, I'm invested in at least 50. Okay. So
Wow.
of that
Mhm.
I've worked with that worked for me, at least half that number, because I always
Yeah.
say to them, like, thank you for helping me with my vision. Right. And
Mhm.
I want to be that first phone call. I want to be that potential first investor to help
Mhm.
you grow your vision. And it's just been a very natural progression. It was never like, hey, I'm trying to talk somebody into it. It was honestly what I found the theme over and over was they wanted it. They had this great concept. Sure, you put in the more things, right, to make it and bake
Mhm.
it. But it was the fear up here. It was the fear of the unknown, the fear of failure, the fear of all the noise they had heard in the chatter. So it was almost like, hey, let me just help you clear that noise. You've got it. You know what you're doing. You know what your potential is. Let me help you
Yeah.
clear that noise and then let's execute on it. Right. And to me, that's been so much more effective and just in life. Right. But yes, so many entrepreneurs or groups that have had to have the tough conversations and say, hey, listen, this model, we need to retool it. We need to retweak it. The world's changed, right? And here's how, here's some ideas. So on both sides, right? Being able to help them, kind of grow their business, sometimes change the business, sometimes go out into business for the first time, or a lot of times taking a business that's, still in maybe more of like a startup mode and help them get to a monetization event, which was an incredible joy as well. And I think
Mhm.
if the people are willing, right, and you have two people with very similar core value systems, you can accomplish anything and work through it.
Yeah. I agree 100%. Um, well, I tell you, you mentioned, you know, people. Well, let me ask you this: the things that you're talking about, um, is there anything you can kind of provide in the way of practical strategies that are fundamental, foundational? In other words, regardless of industry or sector, you know, these principles apply no matter whether you're in real estate, banking, law, medicine, what have you. You know, I mean, it could be 3 to 5 seven. You probably this could be a whole other podcast, I'm sure, by the way. I know it's a loaded question. So
No, it's you're
yeah.
absolutely 100% right. And I didn't realize how
Mhm.
um, effective good business practices and principles are across the gamut, not just on industries, but globally. Right. When I was on my non-competes, I went to Europe to learn and to grow and see what I was missing, right, as far as here. So it's just one of these things that transcends everything. But I will say it comes down to like the three basics, right? You've got to have the right product, right? You've got to have
Mhm.
the right process, because otherwise you're stuck on first base. And you have to have the right people. And I know we have all of these other things that we're chasing, but at the end of the day, to me, it boils down to those three things. Because as you know, and I know, in business there's a lot of challenges, right? There's a lot of, this kind of a
Mhm.
thing, ebbs and flows, especially in real estate, right? So being able to understand that and align yourself with the right people is critical. And so I learned that, many times over. But the product, the process, the people, as basic as that sounds, if you can hone
Yeah.
in on those, to me, it just transcends everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree 100%. I'm I just finished reading a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And it's all about business and building businesses and decisions you have to make. And repeatedly the common theme amongst the people that were discussed and the businesses discussed, it was the people. I mean, those three things, obviously product, process, and people. But at the end of the day, it's the people and the relationships that really, when you have that in a very solid way, everything else flows a lot more easily. So, well, speaking of people, I want to touch on women because the industry of real estate, of course, that's after I got out of the working with the Air Force and the Navy, I got in banking, and that's what led me to investing, which got me into real estate. But
Love-
a lot's changed since the 1980s. I mean, it's the things are transformed, but still today, I can still see challenges. For what can you say to women who feel challenges or have challenges right now or feel challenged? And what are some of the things they can do to overcome those challenges? Even today, and people who are there's a lot of men out there thinking, "Hey, Garrett, things are pretty equal right now." Well, I mean, I think things have improved a lot, but we've got more room for improvement. That's my personal belief. My first three bosses were all three female, by the way. You know,
Yep. No, I
I mean,
couldn't agree with you more. And thank you for saying that because it is so true.
mhm,
And yes, we have come a long way. I mean, I could tell you stories in the last 20 years, right? But
mhm,
the kind of the theme is we can do more. And I think together and united, we can do more. And what I would say to women, the number one thing that has helped me is stop beating yourself up, right? Because as women, not that men don't do this either, but we internalize a lot and we want to be perfect at everything. And sometimes that's a real thing, right? Because sometimes if you don't outwork the next person or try harder and you get behind the curveball, right? And so you see that a lot in all sorts of different industries. But I always tell women, look, you're juggling 15 plates, right? You've got being a mother, you've oftentimes a wife, a significant other, whatever. You've got 15 plates that you're juggling, and
yeah,
anybody is going to drop one or two every now and then. It is just human. And so sometimes we fixate, I know this from personal experience, on the one or two plates that we dropped. And my
mhm,
whole thing was take a step back and realize the reality. Here's the reality. You have the ability to juggle consistently 13, 14 plates. What has the other
right,
person done? Right? Like focus on the fact that you are able to juggle all of this and multitask. And sure, it's got its challenges, and sure, you drop one. But at the end of the day, you were able to do it if consistently and
right,
effectively because your whole world is running. And so you take that into business, right? And now all of a
mhm,
sudden, it's a little bit more of a level playing field up here because you're not coming into it feeling a little bit defeated or a little bit insecure or a little bit of anything other than, hey, I'm able to juggle a whole lot of plates here, right? And so, as
yeah,
simple as that sounds, changing that in ourselves in our daily life is so critical to success in anything, whether it's your family life, your work life, and listen, it's a challenge all the time for everybody. It's not like anyone is like, oh, I don't want to see my family. We all want to, right? We all want to
right,
do all the things. We all have our why and our reason. But I think that if we can just change that little piece of look at the fact that you're able to juggle all of that, right? And
right,
you look at the world from that perspective, I will tell you, there is something about that just attracts even more positivity. That just attracts success. And so to me,
yeah,
that's something that I would scream it from the rooftops to women because there's so many challenges and find your tribe, right? Find people
yeah,
that you can talk to. That didn't really exist in my day and coming up in business. And there were so many situations where I wish I had
yeah,
had that mentor or that woman to look up to, but it didn't exist. We're creating it now, right? And
right,
so being able to create it now and feel a part of something and be able to, give that wisdom of whatever the situation is that you've gone through to the next person really is what the shattering glass ceilings is all about. And so to me, I never stopped and dwelled on, oh my goodness, I'm the only female in the room. It's, 30 men and what? No, I looked at it and said, I am so excited to be here, right? And if the person didn't understand or the people didn't understand what I was trying to pitch them, let's say, I didn't take it to heart. I literally thought, they didn't understand what I was saying. Let me find another way to re-explain it, right?
right,
Or, I didn't sit and dwell on that. So oftentimes I joke around, but it's so true. I said, listen, if I wasn't let in through the door, I ran in through the window. Didn't matter. I knew what we were there to do. But I
yeah,
don't think you can get to that point until you're able to see the reality that you are qualified and you do have these incredible skill sets, right? And I did a
right,
speaking engagement once, right? And I said on one side of the paper, everybody write down all the things you want to improve about yourself. And I kid you not, people were writing furiously, raising their hand. I need more time. I
mhm,
need more time. I need more time. Flip it over, write the things you like about yourself. It was crickets. There's the
yeah,
problem, right? There's
wow, yeah. It's amazing as you were speaking, I'm thinking through on my team, we've got, well over 100 people on the team and you know, over 100 markets in the country right now. And majority of them are women, and many of them are single and they're raising their kids at the same time. One of them is a single mom in Nashville, and she actually raises six foster children, and she's the
Wow.
top agent in Nashville. And another one, I'm going to be careful. I can't say name. I wish I could say their names. I really wish I could. But another one whose sister lives in LA, by the way, and this particular agent lives in Texas. Um, she's a single mom going through divorce, raising two tiny little. I mean, like 1 and 3 years old,
Mhm.
and she's the number two performing agent on the entire team. I don't know
Amazing.
when this poor woman sleeps. And my mom raised us by herself. She was a bank teller too, by the way. My mom was.
I love
If
it.
you know anything, you remember bank tellers back in the day. They didn't make a lot of money. They probably still don't. And but we really learned a lot as kids how to step up to the plate, and we learned how to cook and clean and take care of the place. And we had to. I mean, so the cool thing is about this is it really is testament to the resiliency of the human spirit. And I'm not just saying this to patronize 50% of the population. My mom raises by herself again,
Mhm.
right? And I've seen it in the workplace, and how women do that. It's just mind-boggling. Where the energy comes from. There must be some deep well of understanding and compassion and love for their children, and wanting to set a good example, and not lowering their standards. That's one of the biggest things I've noticed is the best performers always have and maintain high standards. They have high expectations for themselves and those
Mhm.
around them. And that's what women bring to the table when they are trying to do this all by themselves while they're raising a family. I mean, if they have at least three jobs, you know,
Yep.
that's just to get the start the day and end the day. Hey, I know we're going to run out of time here. We should probably do another podcast, but I want to uh, there's so many other subjects. I want to talk about kind of a final wrap up thing when it comes to staying focused on your goals. It's one of the hardest things as an entrepreneur because there's so many things that come at us. We're getting pitched all day long every day. There's a new thing that can save us time. What do you recommend to people to help them stay focused on their goals when they're building a business?
So I can just speak to you from experience, right? Because I don't have a magic formula, but I can tell you it's worked for me. And it goes right back to what is your goal, right? What is your goal? And then let's work backwards, right? If the goal is X, let's work backwards and literally write it into steps. Then you can put the timelines and, right? But I
Yeah,
think really sitting with yourself and understanding what the goal is sounds so simple, but it's so complex, right?
mhm,
Because we can overwhelm ourselves with thinking what the goal is, but you got to start and put the goal down and let that be the goal, right? And so oftentimes it's anything that isn't helping you achieve that, you put over here for a little bit because the time management piece, there's just simply not enough time, right? So time management and organization and all of those things are critical. But to your point, and it happens to me too, shiny toy squirrel moment, right? And so
mhm,
what do you, the world changes, or you hear somebody and they're fear-based, and really
yeah,
taking a step back and remembering what your goal is and making sure that the goal works, right? Like it's not me
yeah,
coming and saying something that is outdated, right? Like if it's you know what I'm saying? Like making sure that you're
yeah,
current with it, but making sure that that goal is front of mind. And then you're able to take it in like bite-sized pieces, right? Rather than this
yeah,
overwhelming thing, because the goal is going to grow and evolve, right? But that stays with the goal, with the mission, right? So it's not like when I started Genesis, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to go, lay down and dream on the stars and think I'm going to do this. No, but as the goal continued to grow and evolve, I'd already set up that it was limitless, right? I'd
yeah,
already adopted that mentality and let's make it this, right? And then that continues to grow, but truly getting rid of the noise, whether that's negativity or just extra just stuff. If you really stop and weigh it out, is this going to help me achieve that goal?
yeah,
Oftentimes just getting rid of what I call the filler stuff, it really makes a big difference in your business, in your revenue. You start to see you start to see the change, kind of like when you decide to get healthy and you start, a fitness journey and a nutrition, all of a sudden you start to see that jump start. You want to be more motivated. I've found that it's very similar to that, but keeping your goal front and center every single day.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I'm willing to bet you've got it written down too. I mean, I'm sure if you could probably pull up
Oh,
something
yes.
every day you look. Yeah,
Yes. If you could
I do
see
the
my
same
desk,
thing.
you can see it for sure. It
Yeah,
works for me. So, I mean, everybody's different. They've got all sorts of really cool things and
yeah,
products they can use and different tools. And I think all of that is amazing. I think just sitting down with yourself and figuring out what the goal is and how you can get there is key.
yeah. Every single day I wake up usually way before the sunrise. I mean, sometimes between 4 and 5 or 5:30 in the morning. And I always start the day off, with prayer and meditation and then exercise. And usually it's real basic, like military style calisthenics, or actually P90X is part of it. Then I switch off and we'll do TRX for 90 more days and switch back to P90X. But in any case, what I'm getting to is I don't turn on the world till I am turned on myself. I mean, fully, completely. When
Mhm.
I turn the computer on, when I open up the phone, I am absolutely 100%. And I'm not like, I drink coffee when I'm with somebody at dinner having fun. I don't drink coffee to wake up in the morning. And I use that ritual to wake up. But part of that experience is going over my vision
Mhm.
every day, which includes the goals. It's written and it's also visual. I will Google. I know I've got the vision nailed down tight when I can Google some crazy image or something and it finds it instantly. And I'm like, that's it. Boom. It might take me a day, a week, a year, a month. I mean, I've had visions that have taken 25 years,
Mhm.
but I never let go. And that having those goals and just being committed to them, being relentless in the pursuit of them, being disciplined and patient, being a learner, being informed, asking for guidance and wisdom. I mean, you're going to achieve your goals. I can't tell you how fast it's going to happen, but I can tell you it's going to happen. You just simply have to hang in there and do not give up in the face of adversity and challenges because they will happen. You are going to have challenges. Just accept it. And when they happen, look at it as a learning experience, a stepping stone, because you're going to become a bigger person as a result, and you will be able to help people too. And I'm speaking to you, the listener, right now. Look at Trixie. Look at her like Trixie, by the way, I know we're going way past the time here, but so your website, trixycastro.com. I want everybody to write that down. If you're driving, just wait to get home. It'll be in the show notes. Listen to this last part, trixycastro.com. And Trixie, on that site, what can people find a way to get a hold of you? What's the I know
Yeah.
people are going to want to talk to you now because you've got a very compelling story.
Well, thank you. And just to your point, I mean, I 100% couldn't scream it from the rooftops to what you just said, because that my dream was to be able to come and tell the story, right? And to have built something where I could say, hey, listen, let me show you the way, right? Let me help you. And so that is happening now, like as we're speaking, right? This is that. But people can definitely get a hold of me. It's trixycastro.com. I'm new to like kind of public facing. I've always been behind the scenes for all these 20 years. So bear with me on that. But I'm there. They can see, different businesses that I'm involved in, different things like that. And, would love, conversations.
Good. Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you being here and I appreciate you listening, the participants. If you could please leave a review for the podcast. I'm sure you can tell I'm pretty excited about this one because I don't normally speak this way all the time. I'm more reserved, but this is extremely important. It's beyond, again, it's more important than all the things you can learn about investing in real estate and stocks and bonds and gold and silver in businesses. So far, I'm telling you, you just have to believe it and trust it and learn it and do it. But by the way, please leave a review. We appreciate your reviews. Thank you for listening. God bless you and your families, and we will see you on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.